Hey, welcome to the Doc Analyzes Anything, the show where science and psychology meet. We analyze any behavior, human behavior, including bringing a full... All right. Bringing a full rotisserie chicken to a meeting and eating it with your hands. That's all it says.
I can't say that
I
is.
like this one.
That's not beyond or beneath me. You know what I mean?
It just caught me off guard.
I used to take an entire bag of raw carrots, like not peeled or anything, just this giant bag, and go through the whole bag in a lab meeting in school. And
this has got the grease factor, though.
That's true. No, and there's more to this. There's a mess. But you can imagine as the professor's up there talking about something or someone's doing the presentation and I just get the big snap and do it carrot. And just people hated it.
Well, and so, also Steve can't breathe through his nose, so he has to tooth his mouth open.
That is true. As we talked about last time, you broke it, and it's been broken many other times.
I was just the first one.
Yeah. I think the second time I was riding a horse and it reared up and hit me in the nose. So
is that because you were eating carrots? Did it
Probably, yeah. So the nice thing with Taylor, though, is we're actually a great fit because she also was known for bringing, they were baby carrots, but just a giant bag of carrots to her lab meetings. And this was years apart. Like we did not know this about each other till later. So
I think proportionally, those are the right size for the two of you.
Yeah, possibly. And also, I don't like how baby carrots get slimy when you peel them.
They do. They do get slimy.
I'd rather have the dirty grittiness of a not perfectly washed carrot out of the bag than the sliminess of the baby carrot.
Fair enough.
I'm probably not going to be in the minority or majority there, but that's
I like a little earthy bonus to my carrot.
Well,
this has been another episode of the Doc.
All right.
Earthy bonus.
I'll get started so we're not talking about the earthiness. I will say though, rotisserie chicken, like now you're having to choose who in your meeting you're doing the wishbone with. You know what I mean? Like that's got to be done with somebody.
Is that from a rotisserie? Can you get those in a rotisserie?
I'm pretty sure they're in like both chickens and turkeys, not just turkeys.
Oh.
I think so. I don't know.
I've yet to meet a rotisserie chicken that doesn't come in a bag that's obnoxious, kind of like trying to open a bag of candy in the movie theater.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you're battling with that too.
I only really like
What? Go ahead.
I only like when I make a rotisserie chicken usually anyways, because when you get them in the bag, the condensation makes the skin soft again. I want it crispy. So like I used to have a grill that had the rotisserie built in, but I don't have it anymore. So now I just do beer can chicken instead.
No, that's a good call. That's an excellent call. We had to get a rotisserie that was cold from the store because they were out of hot ones. I'd never heard of cold ones the other day, but it was like heated up and cold. So I opened the air fryer, put it in there, and it was okay. Yeah. It's a rotisserie chicken. It's fine.
Yeah. I was just thinking with the wishbone, like you find your adversary, be like, you have the good stapler. Here's the battle. Or, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of potential there.
I like it. I like this a lot. I like the idea of having an adversary.
I have adversaries everywhere I go, even if they're just in my head.
They don't even know it.
No, they have no idea. That person just randomly looked in my direction walking through Costco.
We're done,
buddy.
A good spot for a rotisserie chicken.
Yeah. I've never had one from there, but I'm sure it's great. All right. Let's actually get started since you've tried to get me on track a couple times now. We're going to talk about the original purpose was brainwashing. What is brainwashing? But then I thought about we really need to talk about memory and what is memory as a whole before we get into specific like what is brainwashing. So we'll jump a few different places on this one. But to really get us started, just in case you've never listened to us before and don't know our voices or pictures, depending on where you're consuming this, I am your host, Dr. Steven Sparks, along with my every time co-host, Kyle Sturry, and sometimes, a lot of the time, maybe part of the time, co-host Chad Hartung. And
he's most of the time co-host.
I think we're still a little bit higher with Brad than Chad. So I don't know if we can really say most,
I haven't
but
looked at the data.
it's pretty even. Truthfully,
We'll say most enjoyed.
That data, I mean, it's anecdotal, but
I will say you are much less of an adversary as far as these episodes go. So there's that.
I'm waiting for Kyle to get the soundboard out and go pew pew pew.
Yeah.
He probably has it somewhere.
It's queued up.
He's gonna push the wrong button somewhere.
Have you seen there's a musical going on, and there's a keyboardist who's also doing sound effects, and she hits the wrong button, and it's a very, very serious part of this musical, and it's a fart sound effect, but it's not only like a fart, it's like 3 in a row, and then like one long one. It's like rah, 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 and it's just eruption and laughter. Like, just I need to find it. We need an episode where we just watch funny YouTube clips and
then tell people about them, but don't actually show them to anybody.
Well, we will show them. We'll show them on the YouTube.
For the few people that actually watch us instead of just listen, they can.
Either way,
everybody else is just be completely confused. But
I think we got it.
Few.
I think we got it.
All right. So brainwashing.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I remember being a little kid and hearing about brainwashing and just picturing like this machine there, like hooked up to someone's head and like changing their thoughts, or maybe even like an interrogation type scene from a movie where they have your like eyes taped open and they're feeding you information or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember when I realized, no, it was just like kind of shaping somebody's memories to fit your own agenda, basically. But growing up, I had a friend, I was probably 4 or 5 at the time, where like they were living next door, then all of a sudden they were gone, and calling the house and couldn't get a hold of them. They're at their new place and all this. And then like 6 months later comes back around and he's like, oh yeah, sorry about that. My ex-stepdad kidnapped and brainwashed us. And so, but I'm better now. And I'm like, how does that work? And looking back, truthfully, the situation with the primary caregiver, who's the mom, was never a good situation. And so it very well could have been almost the opposite, where, the ex-stepdad received custody, was saying, hey, that's not a good situation. We're gonna do better now. And then when the other parent got custody back, it was like, okay, now we're telling you were brainwashed and none of this was real, sort of thing. So this is probably why it was more in the forefront of my thoughts as a child than a lot of people. Like, to me, this is on the same plane as like, do I have to worry about quicksand walking through the forest, or trying to remember what the other example is. Really, I just expected this to be a much bigger issue in life than it really is.
For us in Michigan, I think quicksand and tornadoes were the ones that were like drilled into us. Like, we had tornado drills all the time, as if they were just regularly occurring every other week. And thank goodness we haven't had any issues, because I know there was some stuff that was relatively close by. Quicksand, I definitely thought it was going to be a bigger problem.
I had a friend whose brother was at work and the whole building was taken out recently, and everybody was fine, but his car and the building were destroyed. So it's definitely been hitting us more recently, and I think that is a discussion we'll have at some point with, I don't know which episode, but is the environment, is the world, is Mother Nature trying to do away with us because of the damage we do here, or what's going on with these weather patterns getting crazy?
Yeah,
but examine Mother Nature's behavior. All right.
Yeah. But this is about brainwashing, so not that. I think whirlpools is the other one. It just seemed like whirlpools were going to be an issue that we had to be concerned about. That there's a Mythbusters. Riptide, yes, but an actual whirlpool, like, I remember having a bad dream as a kid where I was like out on a lake and there wasn't room on the boat with my whole family, so my cousin and I were on like surfboards paddling, and then there was a whirlpool and we're being like sucked down trying to get out while paddling on these surfboards. And
terrible.
Of course, the whirlpool was actually caused by sharks swimming really fast in circles around us.
Right. Of course.
Yeah, because that's how they're usually started. But like quicksand, supposedly, as long as you're careful, you don't move, you can float on it, and it is very hard to actually have a demise in quicksand. And obviously whirlpools are large enough for a human to be sucked down, but the physics are impossible for the inside of the whirlpool to spin fast enough to create enough of a vortex for it to be large enough to take more than a very small watercraft down. So this idea that a random one could take down a ship of some sort is physically impossible, because it would have to be spinning at hundreds, if not thousands of miles an hour at the center of the whirlpool in order for it to move fast enough on the outside to pull it in. That was another Mythbusters episode, if anybody's interested in looking up the old Mythbusters. So none of these things seem like they are quite the concern that I believe they would be as I was a child. But brainwashing, at least conceptually, is a thing, and I think it's basically what we all talk to about gaslighting now, as long as that gaslighting leads to an actual change in thought processes, behaviors, and what a person believes. And so it probably can be almost used interchangeably when we start looking at it that way.
Gaslighting being convincing somebody
that
you're wrong about something, or that it's always been a certain way,
or if that something's their fault, or that they're unstable. I think of a lot in terms of a relationship where there's a person who is controlling and they're convincing the other person, like, listen, you have a problem, not me, and that's why you should just listen to me or do what I say, rather than it being, nope, maybe we should learn how to work together, that sort of thing. So we'll get into that a little bit more, but I do think we need to talk about, and I think we've mentioned it previously, but what is memory, scientifically speaking, in terms of behavioral science? And obviously that's going to be different from a neurological science. I'm going to give my thoughts, opinions, hypotheses involving both, and we should all just recognize the fact that I have a lot of expertise in behavioral science and almost none, very little, in neuroscience. I have just enough to know
objective of you.
Yeah, I have just enough to know generally what's going on, but kind of. So, and so here's the example. We know that there are actually neurological connections being made between different neurons in the brain when learning occurs or a new experience occurs. We would call that learning as behavior analysts, even though it may not be what people traditionally think of learning in a classroom or skill building type setting. So you meet somebody, you learn their name, you learn some things about them. That is what we're talking about learning, just as much as sitting down and learning math in school or something along those lines. But that doesn't mean that just because these connections are made or these neurons are showing growth, for lack of a better term, that's physically existing somewhere. It's not like a computer hard drive. You input the information and it's just there now. Especially with the older hard drives, with the disk drive, where it's actually printed on to the disk. I know now we're all moving to these solid state drives, and I don't know as well how that works, but I assume it's still probably physically imprinted somehow. But
kids these days don't know.
Let's go back down memory lane here a minute. You all, I know Chad does, remember the laser discs? Yeah,
I do. Hang on a second.
All right.
No way.
How long do we hang, or do I just keep talking here?
That'd be really cool if you had one. And then there was later on mini discs, and those were
Wow. So for those that are listening here, as Kyle goes to get his prop, laser discs were basically the size of a record. They looked like a CD, and for a very short period of time, if you're looking at YouTube, he actually has one out for you right now. Wicked. For a period of time, people thought that was going to replace VHS. And it kind of did when they could shrink them down and fit much more data on them and use it as a DVD or HD DVD or Blu-ray later on.
Yes.
What is the mind's eye?
This is one of the first computer animated music videos.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if you can see all those or not. Some of the scenes
Yeah.
very like each one is like computer generated music and computer generated visuals, but this is from where's the date on this? I think it's like 83. We have a Laserdisc player out there and throw this on silent every now and then across all the TVs, which is really fun.
Yeah, I will admit,
Go ahead.
my dad really loved like adopting early technology
Yeah.
back around that time. And like, not only did we think this is potentially the way of the future because the picture was supposed to be better than VHS, but, and I'm pretty sure that the time for prosecution is passed now. He would also rent those and then copy them onto VHS. So then we had the tapes at home as well.
Pretty
And
easy to
so,
rip.
of course, we had now we have our VHSs that have a short pause because those ones could hold such little data that you actually had to physically flip it over halfway through the movie or put a new disc in.
Yep.
But I saw online the other day that the data on these in the recordings is so large that you can take a microscope, zoom in, and actually see pictures from the movie, the scenes, using a microscope.
Oh, in
Supposedly.
this?
Yeah, and on Laserdisc,
wow.
at least the one that they were looking at. And
That's
so
kind of cool.
this is why I'm using it as an example, is it's not like a physically imprinted thing in our brains. That's not what memory is.
Right.
Memory requires repeated exposure to occur. You have to, and we don't mean like you have to have something happen multiple times, but you meet somebody, they tell you your name. If you want to remember their name, which I am really, really bad at doing, that you're kind of repeating yourself or talking about the information they gave you, building this almost like a concept formation of who that person is or what they are as an entity, and then they becomes a memory for you. So it's let's use an example we've used previously. Say you're using learning a new word, and it has all these connections made in the brain, where the reason there are so many connections being made when you learn something new is because different parts of your repertoire that are all involved in that moment are kind of becoming interconnected. And this is where to me, it's more of a hypothesis than something that's actually been shown, because there's not a lot of overlap between our sciences. But we know that different parts of the repertoire involved are being strengthened in the moment. So when we first discussed the idea of reification for the listeners here, there's probably not a lot of them who have heard that word before, because I know I hadn't heard it until I was in grad school. Chad, remember what it is? It is basically that you're treating a complex concept or system as a thing that exists in and of itself. So if I were to say that love is a reification, it's not that love doesn't exist to us, that we can't identify it, but it's not a thing that exists in its own right. It is the verbal behavior, the pairing of that with the other individual, and the pairing of these neurological activity and the glandular activity, the body feelings you have along with those words that you associate with love, all being paired with this individual. And that's what creates what love is. To the rest of society, love is a thing, but to us, it is a complex system of behavior that occurs. And therefore, the idea of love existing in its own right is a reification. So now if I teach you this new word in that context, it has been paired with reification, now paired with love. It's also with neuroscience. It's now paired with everything that's around you, that's salient in your environment right now. And that's why later on, when you're trying to remember a conversation you had, it's also often helpful to remember where you were when that conversation took place, what was going on, what other conversations were going on, maybe what you were eating at the time. Those things will help you remember something you're struggling to remember, because they are now all associated. And again, my theory is those different parts of the brain that are related to that previous learning are now interconnected, potentially physically interconnected with neurons or neurological connections, because of those pairings physically occurring. But even so, it's not sitting there somewhere. It is that repeated exposure of that. The fact that afterwards we are sitting there and thinking to ourselves the person's name, or thinking about the fact we just learned, or decompressing and thinking about whatever we just experienced. And it's that reliving of it in our head from our verbal behavior and visualizing, the different situations and what happened that create a memory.
It's the same in like learning a skill. Essentially, like one exposure to a new circumstance that involves some sort of new skill is probably not going to be the most proficient. If you're asked to remember a series of letters or numbers or something like that on first exposure, most of us probably couldn't remember it if it was too complex, but we could after repeated exposures to it. That's what I likened it to.
And again, how salient something is, how obvious, how much it sticks out compared to the rest of the environment will determine how well you remember it as well. Like if you have 5 conversations going on, someone mentions something, then later on you're like, what was that? I remember it was important. I remember I wanted to remember it, but there was too much going on, versus you're in, history class and something really catches you by surprise. You never thought of something, and all of a sudden you're like, shoot, I can remember that forever.
Right.
And how interesting I found things, I think, is probably why I was good at remembering facts that a lot of other people would forget. But then again, I can't remember the name of most people I meet until I've met them several times, just because it's not that I don't care, but I don't ever think to sit there and like, right, their name is this, and picturing them. It's like I hear it in the context of the conversation, and I'm more likely to remember the other pieces of the conversation than the name.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, so like memory isn't playback; it's more like rebuilding the story each time. I'm curious because this happens to me all the time because I don't believe I have a good memory, and I'm sure that's something that, at least based on your science, could be worked on.
Yeah.
But like I'll have like the it's on the tip of my tongue moments all the time. And do you have any thoughts around what that is? Because like I'll actually find
That's
myself.
me too. That's me
I'll like
too.
find myself like physically moving my eyes, looking for it somewhere. Yeah, you're laughing already. He's
I know
laughing.
I do that too, but especially when I'm doing math in my head, I'll be sitting there talking to like my accountant, and he'll say, "All right, how much was this?" And I'm like actually adding up the numbers in my head. And he's like looking at the ceiling, like, "What are you looking at up there, man?"
I do that too.
Yeah. Which is funny because I think a lot of people associate that with you making up a lie, is when you like look up like that or something. And so we got to be a little bit careful with that overgeneralization. But if you remember something but can't remember it clearly, it's like right there on the tip of your tongue. It's either that it was strengthening your repertoire, but not to the point where the environment you are in right now is enough to bring it back. And so if it was something that you had spent more time really working to remember, it may be that you could remember it in more situations compared to just the one where you learned it in. Or that, you just have to get back in a situation where the environment right now is enough to bring it into the forefront or strengthen it in your repertoire at that moment, but not enough to actually allow you to remember the details. But once you go to a situation that's slightly more like the one you learned in, or you remember some more details of where you are, then it's likely you'd be better off to remember those small details. And so it is a skill that can be learned. You can do things like, trying to remember some of the examples, but like if you associate something you're learning with something else, they allow people to remember names purposely, like, all right, this name is Fred Shed, sort of finding rhyming and things like that are going to make it so it's a lot easier to remember because it's associated with a lot more things. That is one way to work on it. Just testing yourself, where you read something and then come back to it 2 minutes later, come back to it 5 minutes later, can help a lot. I'm sure I mentioned it before, if not in this podcast and in others, that I did not know how to memorize things until the end of undergrad. Like I did well enough in school because I would remember some things naturally, but I never was able to really know how you study for a test. I would just read over the information a couple of times and just hope it stuck. But I took a class, the first real true behavior analytic class I took, and we ended up by the end of the semester like 150, 200 vocab cards that we'd have memorized, either word for word or that you could give the meaning so closely without missing anything, like in the context. And I had to teach myself how to go through go in like the first part of the definition. All right, now go to this, add in the second part. Now go back to the first part again. Do I still remember the first part? Now add the second and the third part. Now go back to the second part and break it down. So I was actually learning piece by piece to remember those different parts of the definition. By the end of the semester, I could just go in, read over it a few times and remember. And then within the 6.5, 7 years later of finishing my PhD, I could take a stack of note cards, like, I don't know, as thick as 2 decks of cards, were full paragraphs written on the back. I'd write out the note card, and then a few days later, spend 30 minutes before the test memorizing them, and I was good to go. And so it is a skill that you can hone and work on. And to be successful in some educational settings, you have to be able to do that. I really had to learn how to do that to be able to do what I did. But
reminds me of those, like, and most of them are frauds, but the speed readers who
sure,
like get in a book and just like look
yeah,
through it.
most of those are made up, and a lot of them that aren't made up, they are just learning how to find 1 or 2 words here and there in context to give a general premise. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, I'm getting a reading here, you know, like somebody's
Right.
loved one start with the letter J and then, you know, go from there, sort of thing. Like, oh, I saw these words that wouldn't make sense in a lot of other situations, and I know what this book is about in general, and so
Right.
I'm going to go from there. But memory is a skill that you can learn. It's just not necessarily a fun or easy thing to work on, unless you really want to be one of those people that can be given random facts and regurgitate them quickly. And I'll also say the amount of attention I got with like cousins and friends and family members to be able to do like funny lines from movies when the context was right really
Nice.
helped build up some of those memories. I got a lot of attention as a kid remembering turn by turn directions, and so I've always been good with directions because of that. Our 4-year-old's the same way, where he can tell you turn by turn how to get to places 2 hours away if he's been there before, because everybody was so shocked and amazed that he remembered closer things that he just started unintentionally memorizing how to get places and asking questions about it. The what you do remember well that other people don't is likely due to your reinforcement history.
Makes a lot of sense.
To get back to though what we were talking about with having to relive or picture or talk to yourself about a situation to really build it up, not something you're trying to memorize, but just something kind of randomly you've experienced in your life and that becomes part of your repertoire. There's a lot of experimentation in our field that's been done to show that you need these mediating factors. You need to be able to talk to yourself, repeat it to yourself, those sort of things in order to remember things you're learning. And so this is kind of like a accumulation of several studies I'm putting together here to give a description. It's not just one that you can look up perfectly, although we could look those up and post them if you want. But what they would often do was, all right, we're going to come up with a gibberish word. Never been uttered as far as we know ever again. It's completely novel to the learner, brand new. Give it meaning, maybe even pair it with a symbol that is also has no meaning to us right now, but then equate it to other things that are already in our repertoire. So like blah, 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 and you show them the picture. And this is like a dog's third toe. That's what this means. You know what I mean? And then you go through a series of like 10 or 15 of these. They give this same instruction to everybody and are told to remember it. They're going to be tested on it in 10 minutes. And then half the group, they give another task immediately afterwards that prevents them, at least in theory, from being able to talk to themselves about what they just went over. Like, all right, now I need you to recite this or write this down or talk about something else. And therefore, your verbal behavior is busy doing that, and you can't keep repeating it to yourself. And not every study, but the majority of the studies have shown that the group that is told to do something else that blocks that internal mediation or repeating to yourself prevents you from learning that new skill or that new idea, that new information. So it doesn't mean that you won't remember any of it or a piece of it. It will be familiar to you, but kind of what you're saying right now, Chad, if this something you learn, like, oh, that's interesting, but you go on to the next thing and you don't have time to really think about it, you're just going to have this like, oh, either deja vu or there's something I remember. This seems familiar, but it's no longer there. You know what I mean?
I have lots of deja vu, and I'm curious. I've always considered myself, and it's probably a little bit of cope, but like bad with names.
Mm-hmm.
So is it, and a big part of my business requires getting, pretty solid relationships with people to earn their trust. Does that mean I'm not actually motivated by getting to know people in order to win their business, or the motivation isn't proper?
It A lot of different things could be going on.
Yeah.
A lot of times I've gotten very good at just talking to somebody like they're an old friend and not even needing to use the name. You know what I mean? Like you'll hear,
I can fake it. I can
yeah.
totally fake it,
Well, but
but
I'm not even trying to fake it now. It's just become strengthened in my behavioral patterns to like talk to people like we're such old friends. I don't even have to use your name. You know what I mean? And I also don't use the names of my good friends very often either. You know what I mean? Like if I'm referring to somebody else, I will. But if I walk up and say, "Hey, what's up?" I'm not saying, "Hey, what's up, Chad?" You
yeah.
know, I almost feel like when people do that, it's like they're trying to show off that they remember my name rather than, you know, but it for you it probably means there's a disconnect between the reinforcing value of or the previous attention of remembering somebody's name and that being directly correlated to your success in sales or business. If there's a more direct correlation, like it's obvious to you, I use their name and then immediately afterwards they want to purchase my product,
Mhm.
then it would almost naturally be reinforced and be built in your repertoire versus, and this is getting kind of the nitty gritty. I had a professor that had said any reinforcer that follows a behavior by more than 60 seconds would not directly reinforce that behavior. Now you can have the verbal behavior afterwards to tell yourself, "Hey, if I do this 2 weeks from now, I'm going to get this reinforcing outcome." And that's kind of what sets us apart from other animals is we have that ability to tell ourselves this rule. It's a rule governed behavior. It is a analog to or analogous to the contingencies that would naturally shape our behavior. But if you are not sitting there telling yourself, if I remember this guy's name, he's going to buy this from me, or this
Mhm.
lady's name, she's going to buy this from me, then it would be less likely to effectively control your behavior if that sale comes more than 60 seconds afterwards. And I think that 60 seconds is fairly arbitrary, but there have been significant studies that show that unless you really work with a nonverbal organism to stretch that time out longer, then it's not going down around 60 seconds, a couple of minutes, whatever, is not going to affect their behavior. So if you yell at your
See,
dog for peeing on the floor 3 hours later, they're going to be like, "Why the hell are you yelling at me?"
see, I'm very motivated, especially with new people, and making sure that the interaction goes smoothly. That the name, like, it's not a salient contingent. Like the contingency isn't. There's no reinforcer for remembering their name right away. You know what I mean? I'm more concerned about like, oh, like, is it important that I look cool or sound like I know what I'm talking about or make this
I think the
person
ship sailed
smile
on
or
that one for you, Kyle.
I look very cool. I have a on-call laser disc when you wanted it. How cool am I?
uh, yeah, I will say having a new conversation with a new person, assuming that I'm enjoying that interaction at all, be reinforcing and memorable is much stronger motivation to me than the little things like names or small details. And so
Yeah.
that is why I think I have never bothered. It's never been like, oh, I got to remember this name. I got to remember this name. It's like, I just had a great
Right.
interaction with you. Oh, shoot. What was their name again? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep.
Um, I'm also not always good at remembering people from the past, their names. And that's just probably because it's been so long since it's been strengthened in the repertoire. Like I remember, I don't know, it was pre-COVID, but we were all at the bar somewhere. Chad, I'm guessing you were there. I don't know, but ran into someone. I'm like, I know we were friends. I know we spent time together. Just seeing your face, I have this. It's that warm feeling, like it is. But you have been paired with a good time at some point. Yet I have no idea who the hell you are. And
Yeah,
it's just been so long since I've encountered you that is no longer strengthened in my repertoire at this point.
that's interesting. You Steve, you actually do have um a stronger side of your memory of like being able to regurgitate the experience, like talking about what happened, potentially who was there, more as far as like, you know, there was this group of people more than like specifically the people by their name. That's
Yeah.
interesting that like you bring that up, and that has been something that you've had you've contributed value to, was the experience over the actual names of people.
But it probably has something to do with the fact that, like, looking at our friends, and I'm going to give tell a story here in a little bit. I think if we don't run out of time, that'll just be one of those, like, is this really how it went or not? Is this a true memory? Because it seems so wild looking back. Um, but it is one of those where we had a lot of wild times, almost unbelievable things that happened to us in our friend group. And I think it's because we put so much emphasis on the reinforcement of enjoying the moment and doing these things and having a wild, fun, exciting time, that some of those other details weren't salient and weren't as reinforcing to us necessarily. Either that or we just made really poor decisions and put ourselves in really dangerous situations. It could be either one. It's impossible to know. But first, let's get into um, what is brainwashing then, now that we've talked about what memory is in general. And it really is slowly, systematically, or I say systematically like someone's planned it out, but it is a fairly systematic process, even though they may not have planned it out systematically, of almost providing false memories or false data, false information to change their memory of what something is or change their prior learning history. And so if we're going back to that friend of mine from when I was a small child, and most parties involved in this situation are no longer living. And so that's part of the reason I don't mind at least talking about it in generalities. But the fact is he was likely told little bits of time, like, oh no, that never happened. Oh, they're just filling your head with things. And then, oh no, that's not how this was actually like this. It was actually, they were the bad guy. And slowly over time, you start to question, was I just remembering things incorrectly? Was it really fed to me? I was made to believe that this person was a bad person, but they really aren't. And then you go back to that person. They're like, no, this person was really the bad person. Here's why. And then that repeated exposure is actually changing the way you remember things. Same thing with, you're muted, Kyle. What are you trying to say here?
Sorry, I forgot. I said this ties into the Colts episode.
Yeah. It is some overlap with that. I think there was another example that I had that of one that we may have talked about similar things, well, or maybe we will, but we'll see if I come to that, because I'm not going to go searching through the notes and make everybody wait. But
Right.
it is basically reinforcing your reaction or your memory in a way that is different than it actually occurred. And maybe this is what I was getting at. This is, to me, why it seems so scary that witness testimony is taken so seriously in the court of law. Is you're in a stressful situation, you remember something maybe correctly, maybe incorrectly, and then anybody else's input, like, oh, that's crazy, or are you sure it wasn't this way, or the police asking you questions a certain way, could easily change that memory. And it's still a true memory to you. It's very real to you, but it's not the way things happened at all. And it's just like, witness statements really are not that trustworthy because of this type of phenomenon.
And this is similar to like the Mandela effect too, when people remembered.
I'm going to end on that, because that is,
are we?
it's just a kind of a fun examples of the Mandela effect and what it is.
Then forget I said anything, guys.
Or you can explain it now if you really want to.
Oh, I don't know if I'll explain it exactly accurately, but I know it's the, like, as a group, not just a single person, but like a group seems to remember an event a certain way, or like there's like logos, like the McDonald's logo looks different than what like a big group of people thought, or something like that. But, yeah.
We'll explain why it's called that and what it is in a moment here, but it is that general idea that you picture something a certain way and it slightly changes over time, but for some reason something is salient enough that multiple people are misremembering things exactly the same way. And yeah, the same thing with witness behavior or brainwashing, or having the gaslighting phenomenon that everybody talks about now is because reliving it and thinking about it is how it maintains its strength in your repertoire and becomes a memory and maintains a memory. Being told and remembering things slightly different each time will actually change that memory and have it be potentially nothing like it originally was.
Gotcha.
So I'll give the example of the crazy 100% epic story that I remember from our teenage years. Chad was not there, but he very well could have been. This would have been the time that we would have been doing something together. I'm changing the names or using obscure nicknames to not alienate anyone, but those of us that were friends will be able to recognize who I'm talking about. So I also want to point out this is an extreme case of white privilege, and I will just it's an example of why this phenomenon of white privilege does exist, is the fact that some white kids from the suburbs didn't get in trouble the way almost anybody else would have. So yes, maybe I didn't grow up privileged silver spoon, but I recognize that I got out of situations that I would not have had I looked different or talked different even. But anyways,
Fair.
5 of us going down to a party. Wayne State University is in downtown Detroit. Go down, lots of beer with us. I think everybody's underage. 1 or 2 people may have already been in some trouble on probation. And what's a better idea than drive down and party? And so there's Jimbo, Deej, and I in one car. It's like a 1980s black Cadillac Eldorado with limo tints. And then the French president, and we'll say Skidmark for the third person, and the other guy in Skidmark's car.
This
A
is a
little
motley crew.
yes, a white Honda Civic, and these were all true nicknames at one point in time, but it's been over 20 years, and so nobody uses these nicknames anymore. Skidmark's driving his white Honda Civic with a baby seat in the back because he had a child younger, and the French president's riding with him. Go to this party, have a great time. Walking out of the party and decide we're going to go do something else, head somewhere else. It's kind of dying down. And there's a college-age kid outside, and the French president had broken his wrist recently, so he had a cast on his wrist. And the guy's like, hit me with your cast. Like, no, I'm not doing that. That's stupid. He walks away. And then I walk out, and I'm much larger than this other person. And Skidmark's right there with me, and he's always been one to egg everybody on. And he's like, hit me. I'm like, no, but I have to ask you, why? When I have like a foot on you and like probably 80 to 100 pounds heavier than you, do you think it's a good idea to ask me to hit you? It doesn't make any sense. And as I'm asking this, the guy clocks me in the nose and just blood everywhere. And so I didn't hurt him, but I did just enough physically to show him this was a really bad decision you've just made. Never do this to somebody again. When I figured I had made my point, I looked at his friend. I'm like, "You cool?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm cool. I'm staying out of this." And we look up, and there's a police car, like, and there are 2 officers in a police car watching this happen. And we just kept walking away, like, well, I guess at this point, now we should have just started walking down the street and been stopped for potentially what had just happened, rather than getting in the car when people have been drinking to drive away.
Sure.
But we're making great decisions at this point. So we get on this main thoroughfare. It's a boulevard, so it's divided road each way. And nobody thought to figure out where we're going or how to get there. And so we're doing like circles at this point, trying to figure out where we're going. Jimbo's driving the Cadillac. Deej is in the front seat. I'm in the back. We're drinking a beer. And the French president's driving Skidmark's car, because Skidmark has always been good at telling everybody else, hey, I'm too drunk, I can't drive, even though he's probably the soberest one in the group. So finally, in Jimbo's car, we get pulled over, like, oh shit, start pouring the beer out on the floor, kicking cans under seats, the things that obviously are not actually going to save you in this moment, but
right.
What else are you going to do? The officer comes up, and I will say he was a young white officer. Detroit police says, Oh, do you know I pulled you over? Oh, probably because we're doing circles. So you've been drinking? Yes, sir. How much? Probably too much. He's like, all right, hold on a second. Comes back. He's like, listen, I don't want to put you in Wayne County Jail. It's a rough place. And again, this is where the white privilege comes in. I don't want to like arrest all of you, and I don't want to even arrest the driver, even though you're intoxicated. So I will give you a open intox ticket, which allows me to impound your car so you can't drive anymore tonight. I know you're with that other car. Tell them to come back and get you, and you can be on your way. I'm like, all right. So we call the French president. He's like, hell no, I'm not coming back. I've been drinking, man. I'm not going to come back and interact with the police on purpose. I'm like, sir, can we just walk and meet them? He's, they're nervous. Obviously, there's been a little alcohol involved. We're not being belligerent, so I was hoping, that because we're not being super intoxicated, that they'd be okay with it. He's like, no, it's too dangerous of an area. I'm like, sir, listen, I really, really have to urinate. Can we please go? And he's like, no. We start hearing gunfire going off fairly nearby. And he goes, that's why you're not walking in this neighborhood. Just go to the bathroom right here. So I remember it being all three of us on a main boulevard talking to the police over our shoulders as we urinate on the side of a building here in downtown Detroit. Finally, come back, we're done. We're talking about, listen, my friend does not have a license, but he's the only sober, like really sober one here. He's not coming back. Like, you got to let us walk or do something because he's just not coming. He's like, tell him I do not care. I will write him a license to drive for the night if he comes back right now and takes you with him. I told my buddy this, and he's like,
that's your guy.
All right, I guess. And the officer literally took out a business card, wrote, what his real name, the French president can drive here on this night, and sent us on the way with Deej sitting in the baby seat in the back of this Honda Civic. And he's got a dip in his mouth. He's like looking for a bottle to spit in. We're like, oh, baby Huey needs a bottle in the baby seat back there. And we just got the heck out of there. And so the point is, first of all,
there's no way a handwritten license is
no, none of this is legal
by law, right? Yeah.
No. Especially when you've also maybe had a couple drinks. And so the part of the point of the story is it's an epic story, maybe the most unbelievable story, but it's exactly, I can picture each part of this memory. And everybody will corroborate parts of this memory, but I don't think anybody remembers it moment by moment, piece by piece, identical to how I do. You know what I mean? And so how much of this was a little piece here and there? Like, I remember the police officer saying, oh, did you get in a fight? Oh, did you win? I'm like, no, sir. I hit in the face. Look at me. I'm all bloody. And thinking, no, that's why they were so nice to us, is we were being truthful, not just that we were some white kids from the suburbs down in a potentially dangerous area. But was that interaction really the way it went down? I know key pieces of it did happen. The writing the license on the business card happened, but have I, over time, to tell a good story, embellished small parts that I don't remember and created a much more epic story than it really was? I don't know, and I don't think anybody else can corroborate it because there was alcohol involved, and it is just, which parts of it were salient to me in the moment that I remember correctly that others don't, or that, they just didn't recognize or realize at the time. Who knows? And so
there was no cop, there was no fight. It was you just
there was definitely police, there was definitely a fight, there was definitely an impounded car, and nobody went to jail. Those pieces I can tell you for sure. And the French president will say he was written a license for the night.
Fair.
But
okay,
the details of peeing on the house and on the police over I remember that vividly, and I remember all three of us doing it at the same time. There's a good chance that that's not how that actually went down, but I remember it vividly from that night. You know what I mean? And so It is just the way that even telling a good story can create a new memory for you that may or may not be exactly the way it occurred.
Yeah, I do that a lot. Like I remember things very differently, but usually because the way I'm telling it strikes a better chord with like the reality of the situation with the audience I'm telling it to. So like I'll be saying a story and my wife will be like, only like a fourth of that happened. I'm like, yeah, but I guess so. I don't even think about it though. I don't feel like I'm lying. I just enjoy telling stories.
Yeah, and if you're telling a story, it's not that you're purposely embellishing, but you're making it sound more exciting than it is. But that
Right.
little tweak over 22, 23 years ago, whatever this was, could be enough. I think it's 21 years ago ish, could be enough to change the actual story to you, where you are telling 100% truthful telling of what you remember, yet it is not how it happened.
Right.
And as far as brainwashing goes and how this works with the gaslighting to an extreme, if anybody hasn't seen the documentary, it's Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie. It is like you can see it happening as they're describing it, where she was one of the early family video bloggers or vloggers, got really famous. Her whole life kind of revolved around making content to put online for her followers and having this perfect family picture, even though things were kind of crumbling. But she started developing extreme views, got a mentor that had very extreme views, and talked her and convinced her of even stronger views, where at one point she believes that her child is a demon or possessed by demons because of how he's interacting with her mentor. And by the end, her husband and the oldest son are just completely alienated and cut off from any contact with the family because they've been brainwashed to believe that they are actually bad, and they believe that there's something wrong with them and they need to stay away for the health of the family, and they'll be able to come back later, not realizing that nope, mom's been brainwashed to the point, or had her view of reality shaped to such an extreme that this is craziness, and everybody else around us sees this as being bad, and it just seems logical to us. I think the same way that you see people that at one point in life you're like, oh, they seemed like a logical, well put together, smart person, and now they have these extremist views. And it often starts, innocently enough. You have a thought that's maybe a little outside the realm, and you find someone else that feels the same way, and you start reading more of what they have to say, start going down rabbit holes, and make one, kind of small step to the next, to maybe a giant leap to the next.
One wrong turn.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you go from being like a cool hippie person that everybody enjoyed, going to concerts with, to like a religious extremist who thinks that there's this new world order that's going to end the world here any day now. You know what I mean? And it is a piece by piece, step by step shaping of your verbal behavior that creates that. But the scary thing is it seems to be happening to so many people so wildly now that we have access to the internet the way it is. And that's why anybody time someone's like, oh, I had this mentor, I remember me like, it's not a cult mentor, is it? Like, this is just like someone's helping you learn something, right? Like, please.
Right.
Hopefully. So I think being a skeptic of everything, even things that seem obvious, is very helpful to stop me from being dragged in, but I still worry about society as a whole with some of those things.
Just completely skeptical of everything.
Absolutely everything. Like we talked about last time, like I can't even guarantee that gravity exists the way I believe it does. So like, how am I going to believe that this person's an expert in what they claim to be an expert in,
Absolutely.
Especially nowadays, so much misinformation. And, Steve, you might have to tell me whether this existed back when we were younger. So there's something that exists now that I don't recall happening before, but maybe it did, and I was just naive to like the term or what was actually happening. But what about gaslighting?
But yeah, I mean, we're talking about gaslighting, and it obviously occurred. I think it has always been a thing.
Did we just not have a term for it, or was it the same term?
I think we would have called it, in a very obvious extreme situation, we'd call it brainwashing. But other than that, I think it was just convincing somebody. There was not that wide use of a term to describe that process of like why are you trying to mess with my head like this,
Yeah.
Maybe we can look it up real quick. Like, I think, wasn't gaslighting originally from like a book or something, an old, like where the first usage was?
It seems like gaslighting seems like a level 101 of brainwashing, but like 400 to where it really makes an impact.
Well, it is, according to the definition, a form of psychological manipulation where you get someone to question their own memory, reality, or perceptions based on just over time continuously questioning or telling them they believe something wrong or that they're being crazy.
It originates from the 1938 British play Gaslight.
Okay.
The plot features a husband manipulating his wife into believing she's losing her mind by dimming their gas-fueled lights but denying it.
I knew it was something like that. It was from a historical piece of, I guess a play probably started off as literature, who knows what, but yeah. It was something like that. I don't remember though. It seems like it's only been 5-10 years that we've started saying it all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Taking like an extreme behavior and making a light version of it for like everyday societal use.
Yeah, and obviously, if this was back, what did you say, the 30s or 40s? This play, it has been used at least somewhat continuously since then to describe this, at least by a subset of people. But I don't think it was shared or understood by a larger group of people till later. Or maybe it was one of those that everybody back then talked about. Then it kind of went away, and then someone's parents said, "Oh, yeah, that's just gaslighting. Oh, what's that?" Then they brought it back to the forefront. I don't know for sure, but it is interesting how something like, maybe someone just read the synopsis of this play, like 80 years later, and they're like, "Oh, cool, let's use it." That's what this is,
Yep.
All right, before we.
No, it's not. It was never that way, Steve. You
No?
don't know what you're talking about.
No.
Cornucopia.
I just at this point, I guess I'm
gaslighting you.
I'm just.
Steve.
I know. I was trying to figure out a way to be self-deprecating because you're gaslighting, but I'm too full of myself for that. The what's the word? The what's it when you're really, really full of yourself? The
narcissist.
Yeah, the narcissism won't allow gaslighting to work with me at this point. I apologize.
Immune. He's immune to it.
Immune to gaslighting.
So interesting enough, I didn't even have this on the list, but you mentioned cornucopia. That is an example of the Mandela effect that I saw. Is everybody believes that Fruit of the Loom's picture, the logo, used to involve or have a cornucopia in the background, and now it doesn't, but it never did. It was always just the fruit.
I don't think it never did.
According to the internet, which is always right, it never did.
It had fruit, but the cornucopia
was not in the background. So
no, this is you guys gaslighting me right now.
Oh, just wait to tell you how you feel here in a moment. So fun way to end it, talking about memory and how they aren't what we think they are. Mandela effect. It is, again, large group of people collectively remembering something incorrectly, and it is named this because when Nelson Mandela died in 2013, a large group of people very clearly remembered him dying in prison in the 1980s. And obviously,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was not. That. I was either too young or not alive at that point to even remember him being in prison. I don't know at what point he was in prison or how. I know he was there for a long time and kind of fighting that apartheid fight from behind prison walls, that sort of thing. So this was not one that I've experienced, but yeah, that is where the Mandela effect name came from. So some of these, all of them are kind of just in, common things, especially from where people our generation or older that we remember. And it seems to be something that it almost has to have occurred in the past in order to affect people later on. And so younger generations probably will experience this more than they are now. And then because they're probably not experiencing it the way we are at this point is what I'm really getting at. But like Looney Tunes, how is that spelled?
Loony.
Yeah, the tunes part. How's tunes spelled?
Oh.
TUNES?
That is correct, but most people remember it TOON. It's like cartoons.
Yeah.
But and like people act like, well, they don't know why, it would be spelled that way. It's weird, and that's why it's remembering correctly. But if you remember, it always popped up like the Merry Melodies, and there's a lot of songs involved, and so that's where I think the tunes came from. But there are people that are adamant that when you see Looney Tunes written, that when it's written TUNES, it is fabricated wrong, and someone's made it up and is messing with their memory.
I like these.
Yeah. And all the examples I found also were kind of like fun society. There are also examples that I couldn't remember or pick out. Maybe Kyle can find one for us that is like serious things that people are misremembering, that like, you know, in history and things like that. But here's one that I never would have thought of until going back, because I was not a big Curious George fan. But did you realize that Curious George never had a tail?
That one I think I knew. Well, maybe like, from the cartoon at least. I don't know about the books.
No, like in the books, I never watched it, but in the books, I feel like I can picture it. But I also wasn't a big enough fan to experience it enough to have the same type of dysphoria that other people experience when they hear this.
Huh. Yeah. You're not a George fan? My kids grew up on George, man.
George was cool enough, but like his adventures weren't that entertaining to me. I'll also, because most of
his adventures weren't that entertaining to me.
No.
That is a great sentence.
Most of my friends growing up are also like, 3 years older for the most part, except for one or two. And so I was watching and doing the things the older kids were doing most of the time.
Gotcha.
So like when Blue's Clues came out and some of the kids in elementary school were watching it, I'm like, no, that's kid stuff. You know what I mean?
I was drinking and driving.
Yeah, right. Barney was old enough for me to have watched Barney, but I was beyond that at that point.
Yeah.
So here's one for you. Monopoly Man never had a monocle. Now, I remember him having a monocle, but I wonder if this is like one of those implanted memories from watching Ace Ventura when Nature Calls. And he's like, oh, it's a Monopoly Man. And then he's making him talk and he has a monocle. And I wonder if that's why people remember the monocle. I don't know.
They didn't have one?
No.
That's interesting.
And I'm trying to remember who is a similar character that would have, you know, had a monocle that would even associate.
I was thinking Mr. Peanut.
It could be. It very well could be. Mr. Peanut had the same hat, the cane type thing going on, and so it could be.
Mr. Peanut definitely has a monocle.
Oh yeah, definitely did. Here's one that really I was shocked that I don't remember this. And again, we're going back to before my time, but also was a large enough part of my childhood. I do not remember that C-3PO from Star Wars had a silver leg, had one silver leg, was not all gold colored.
No.
I'm telling you.
Hang on.
He was all gold.
And maybe it is in like the cover art or something, he was all gold, but in like in the movie itself.
Is that life size to scale?
I'm on a roll today. Here's his face.
I see that those are both. I see they're. Oh wait, it is different color, isn't
silver.
it?
Yeah,
it is different color.
I mean, that's more silver than this one.
And they said that even in like the toys and different things, that it was wrong. But in the movies, there was a silver leg, and I have no recollection of that whatsoever.
Huh?
What other props do you guys need today?
Do you happen to have a copy of Snow White back there somewhere?
Wow, going 3 for 3. Oh, I think I know what this one is.
We'll give him a second to come back. I don't want him to miss out. If there was ever an episode you actually need to watch on YouTube, though, this might be the one. Just the props being pulled out here is just out of nowhere.
Kind of makes you wonder, like, where are they all coming from?
Well, so the other people in the office that he shares, it rents, like there's people that design things for bands, like cover art and different computer-rated things. And so I don't think this is all his. I think this is just a collective of things that are around.
I do have a lot of Disney VHSs, but not. I don't have the one that you mentioned.
All right.
However, I do have the best VHS ever. Never Ending
I was
Story.
not a fan of Never Ending Story as a kid.
Oh
Really?
man,
I was bored by it.
That's good. I remember
what
it.
about Dark Crystal?
First one was good.
Dark
I don't
Crystal.
remember that one.
Jim
No.
Henson's scary movie. Okay, go ahead. Snow
All
White.
right.
I don't have Snow White.
So, Chad, what was it you think you remember from this one?
The quote, "Mirror, mirror on the wall."
Yes. What is it really? Do you remember? Everybody remembers "Mirror, mirror on the wall."
Oh, is it not that?
She actually says "Magic mirror on the wall."
What?
Who's the fairest of them all? Yep. Darth Vader never said, "Luke, I am your father."
I've heard that one before, but
he just said, "I am your father." But everybody has always repeated it. "Luke, I am your father."
We watched that recently, and I noted that.
Can confirm.
Shatner never said, "Beam me up, Scotty." He at one point said, "Hey, Scotty, beam us up," or something like that, but he never said, "Beam me up, Scotty."
I'll take your word on that one.
Yeah. Mickey Mouse never had suspenders. Most people remember old school Mickey with suspenders. Never happened.
Steamboat Willie didn't have suspenders?
Nope. But if you look at the old pictures, those drawings are not very clear, with the technology at the time. And so it might have looked like the buttons were part of suspenders that you just couldn't see. That might be where the confusion comes from that one.
He definitely has buttons. Huh.
And one of the most talked about ones that I've seen online that I do remember seeing this, and I have no idea from why or like how all of our collective memories invented this, but is that Sinbad never played a genie in a movie called Shazam.
I've heard this one.
And
Shaq was in one.
It's called Kazam. And I remember that, but I really remember two distinct different movies that were like similar but completely different. With Sinbad playing one.
I've seen this this debate, and Sinbad himself got involved in it, like confirming, like, no, I was never in this movie.
Yeah, and
wow,
no idea. But I mean, we've just shown that the internet is always a trustworthy place, considering that we got one wrong out of this list. But somehow, some way, there is this idea of, and I think we really pointed to probably how it is there's little context, little things that are similar that people are kind of combining in their memories because it's not something that they think about so often. It's strengthened that much in their repertoire that now the overlap. And there's like 60 of these things, and I just wrote down some of the fun ones that people may or may not remember.
No, those are good.
But I know that, and I couldn't remember of any off the top of my head, and they weren't on any of the lists, but there are also very serious like historical happenings that people misremember the same way. There's one I remember, like the guy that stands in front of the tank in, was it Tiananmen Square, and people remember him being killed, like being run over the tank or shot or set on fire, all these different things, and nobody knows what actually happened to that gentleman whatsoever. But the fire one, I think, is because people remember around the same time when the monk set himself on fire, and they're just combining these memories. And probably another thing where people were getting run over or knocked out of the way by tanks or something else. There's a lot of different things that could be going on to combine to make this memory. But because memory, again, that your takeaway point is not this concrete thing that's just imprinted in your brain, it is subject to manipulation and change like this. So
right. Nice examples.
Did I ruin your day because the Monopoly Man doesn't have a monocle?
No, as long as C3PO is still in good standing with me.
Yeah, we were talking about it. Like, if there's ever an episode to watch on YouTube, just watching you randomly run away to go grab props is worthwhile. See,
every now and then he just peeks his head in there.
Yeah. So before we close, Scott, I hypothesize that you have this because of the other people in your office having all kinds of different cool memorabilia and things. Is that where all these are coming from, or are these your personal stash?
Kind of a collective of all the stuff that our wives won't let us keep in the house.
Okay.
Or like when the kids come over, they watch movies and stuff. We've got like a old Nintendo with like the 4:3 box TV and all that stuff. And if they want to come over here to play games, they're going to play our games that we played.
Any Marble Madness going on over there? Love me some Marble Madness.
I do have. I have some. All the. Is that Nintendo?
Yeah.
I've got all the Mario.
You have Bubble Bobble?
Yes, we do have that one. And the 7-Up game. Remember that one? The 7-Up guy with the sunglasses.
Was that the Noid was the pizza one?
We have the Noid too. Yeah, we have the Noid.
I got the Pandora box. And I
you to talk about this.
Right, that trip. So it works here. It didn't work there because I think the charging port was or the charger was too powerful.
I don't think that Florida allows fun, so there's
maybe that's what it was. It was just Florida.
But
Florida.
All right. So now we know why, if nothing else, Kyle has a bunch of random shit around his office to share with everybody that none of us have
make
otherwise.
That part of every episode from now
yes.
on.
What random thing is sitting near Kyle today? It's like, what's in my hand or what's in my pocket? That's the game we will not play in public. So, anything else? Any other thoughts on memory? Any questions or closing anything? I don't know. No? Usually Chad like reserves his one really thought-provoking question to the very end, so like we have to extend it another 10 minutes. So that's why I'm looking at you.
No, I'm still a little tossed on a few of the Mandela ones.
Yeah.
So I think
he's got to go sit down for a while.
Yeah, we're gonna let this one just lay.
Yeah. I guess then we'll end on that note, and just remember, no matter what's going on in the world around you, how crazy, dumb, exciting, scary it all is, that you only get this one turnaround as far as we know. And so you might as well try to look to the bright side, the happy things. Find ways to enjoy life, even when it's at its worst. And just always look to the bright side, because you never know when you find out that your childhood hero Pikachu's tail never had the black spot, or did have a black spot that you remembered. And then all of a sudden there's a stroke because you just can't handle the reality. So be careful out there and enjoy life.
Well, I won't say what happens to his horse in this movie then.